Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Monday, May 17th, 2021, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 2024 presidential electoral map and talking about Donald Trump's impact on it and how well he could actually perform given if he was the Republican nominee for president in just 3.5 years from now. So with President Trump on the ballot again, I'm sure many of the very important issues of the 2020 election would be brought back up. The way that he handled COVID-19 and the eventual and unfortunate scenario if America does end up in another pandemic. In addition, you could be talking about issues of the economy, issues of immigration, issues of gun control, issues of healthcare, a lot of things that were viewed as negative under President Trump that have yet to be viewed as positive or negative in its entirety under Biden, but some of them are negative and some of them are positive. So a lot of things are going to be brought back up, but this is purely going to be discussing Donald Trump's electoral implications on the 2024 map and how, as a return candidate, he might actually offer still some advantages for the GOP in certain states, while of course decreasing in others. So we're going to be approaching it a little bit differently than we are going to be approaching a regular type of prediction, and that's just, what we're going to be going through. So we're going to be looking through the approval rating. We're going to be looking at the election results in the past, elections with Donald Trump included, elections without Donald Trump included. We're going to see how states have changed, the margin differences between traditional Republicans and Trump Republicans. A lot of things are going to go into this, and I think that it's really just important to note. So let's get started. Let's take a look at the reason why Donald Trump is still being discussed, why I'm still making videos about him. I've seen some of you guys, ask me, why am I still giving him the time of day, even though he's no longer on social media, he's no longer the president of the United States, he has a decreased media presence, but the fact remains that he is the frontrunner for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. So if I was to ignore him, I feel as if that I would be leaving you guys out on something very important, because it is a very real possibility that Donald Trump is the nominee for president in 3 years from now. You are looking at someone who remains insanely popular amongst the GOP, leaving office with an 88% approval rating amongst Republicans. So it's not as if they don't like him, and it's also not as if they won't vote for him again, which is why people are already putting their money behind someone who promised they would leave politics and possibly the country if they lost to Joe Biden. Obviously, that did not end up being true, and let's take a look. Looking at the 2024 map, things certainly have taken a little bit of a different turn just because of the decrease and increased electoral vote counts. So if Donald Trump was to win Texas and Florida today, he would get 3 more electoral votes than he would have or did back in 2020. In addition, if he was able to win Pennsylvania and Ohio, he would get 2 less electoral votes than he did back in 2016 when he won both of those states. So the map is a little bit different. The math is a little bit more wonky than what we're used to, but we will get used to it over the next 10 years because this is the map we're stuck with. Unless there's issues between New York and Minnesota or other states, we're not going to see any more changes in the overall electoral map. So on the 2020 presidential electoral map, Joe Biden won 306 electoral votes. Now in 2016, Donald Trump also won 306 electoral votes. 5 states flipped in 2020 from the Donald Trump column. That was Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. In 2016, I believe it was also not 5 states, actually 6 states that flipped. Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Florida. 6 states that went to Barack Obama in the 2012 presidential election. So Donald Trump had a pretty good impact on the overall result, at least you would think, back in 2016. I mean, flipping 6 states, defeating Hillary Clinton, someone who was a shoo-in for the presidency a year prior, and winning a lot of the votes. Then you fast forward to 2020, and you see a lot of that progress reversed back. But certain states remained around the same. I'm looking at Iowa. When I say that, I'm looking at the fact that Joe Biden didn't even crack 45%. Barack Obama had won this state back in 2012 and 2008. Ohio is another state with a very similar story. Joe Biden barely cracked 45%, and Donald Trump actually won by the exact same amount. Iowa decreased by 1 percentage point, still an 8-point victory for Donald Trump. So while Donald Trump may offer a decreased amount of support in certain states because of the claims of election fraud, I truly don't think it's going to be super significant enough that he would lose Iowa in a rerun election. I actually faced Donald Trump off against Joe Biden on the 2024 electoral map before, and I'm sure many of you guys have seen that video. But I do want to say that we're approaching this a little bit differently. This is not a Joe Biden versus Donald Trump prediction, but we're talking about, where Donald Trump offers some type of advantage being the nominee compared to a traditional Republican, and where he would see a decrease or reduction in support relative to another Republican nominee. So while in my prediction, I may have said that I believe Joe Biden would win Florida in that instance, just based off the fact that we would see a small sliver of his support reduced. I understand Florida is a very interesting state. I could be wrong about this, but I will say that over the next 3 years, if Donald Trump was truly the nominee, I do think that Joe Biden would have a better chance because you don't rerun failed candidates. It rarely ever works, and there's only one president who has ever done that and succeeded, and that was President Grover Cleveland. So Iowa, Ohio, 2 states that I think Donald Trump will offer an advantage being the nominee. I also believe that Florida is also in that case. Relative to most Republican nominees, maybe with the exception being Ron DeSantis, Florida would be more beneficial if Donald Trump was on the ballot. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I think he's going to win. And we're also not going to be worrying about safe states, so we're going to focus primarily on swing states. We'll get to Florida in just a moment. But if you look at what happened, in 2016, Hillary Clinton lost Iowa and Ohio, 2 states that were won by Barack Obama. Obama was able to win in Ohio by 3 points. Trump was able to win by 8. So a shift in support by around 11% statewide, a little bit over that. Iowa was won by Obama by 6 points, won by Trump by 9 points. So you're talking about a shift of 15 points plus in the state of Iowa. So super significant ones in 2016. But let's go ahead and compare 2012 versus 2020. 2 Democratic victories. What changed about those states? Well, others did see a shift towards the left. Ohio and Iowa still are overwhelming shifts, even compared to 2020 when Joe Biden won. It's not as bad as it was in 2016. You're talking an 11-point shift in Ohio, a 15-point shift in Iowa, an 11-point shift again in Ohio, but reduced by 0.1, and then Iowa goes down to a 14-point shift. But still, super significant shifts towards the left. Plenty of crossover voters. You will find a very significant portion of the population that says, I voted for Obama twice, and I voted for Trump twice as well, and will likely remain with the GOP, especially if Donald Trump is that nominee. So Donald Trump will offer an advantage in Iowa. He will offer an advantage in Ohio, and he also will offer an advantage in Florida. I think that there is this general likability from Donald Trump towards minority voters, especially since he was being proclaimed the devil in the eyes of many Democrats towards minority voters, that if Donald Trump was elected back in 2016, minority lives would be completely upended. There's a reason why Miami-Dade County went more for Clinton than it did for Obama. The messaging was there, and the messaging was good in terms of minority voters. It helped Democrats. But the white working class is where they lacked. White voters is where they ultimately lacked as well. They didn't have an inspirational candidate, and they were able to, if they did, and if they won white voters the way that Obama was able to lose them, it's weird to say. If Clinton was able to replicate Obama's margin, even losing amongst white voters, she would have won the presidency. But it's the fact that they turned away from her, not only in the Rust Belt, but also in surrounding swing states, and also all the way down in Florida, all the way over in Texas and Arizona and Nevada and Colorado. You did see a reduction in support. But Miami-Dade County, I think, is a perfect example of how Hillary Clinton tapped into minority voters in a way that Joe Biden and the Democrats of 2020 simply could not. And that's largely why Donald Trump won. But I think also Donald Trump was able to do outreach and send out campaign ads in Spanish and actually focus on the states, do voter registration drives, things that Democrats refused to do in Florida that ultimately cost them the state by double the margin of what Donald Trump won by in 2016. So Florida, I truly believe, if Donald Trump is on the ballot, relative to most other Republicans, again, an exception being Ron DeSantis, but he's not most Republicans, Donald Trump offers a benefit in that state. So he would do okay in Iowa, Ohio. I think he would win those states. I think there's a possibility he wins Florida. I'm not going to say without a doubt Joe Biden would win the state, but I think he has a better chance now than he did 4 years ago. Or not 4 years ago, but 4 years, obviously, prior to 2024. And, while there are some good aspects of Donald Trump being on the ballot yet again, and largely just because of the fact that these states did shift significantly relative to 2012, looking at the 2020 election results, there's also some telling signs that Donald Trump would offer a reduction of support in certain states. And you also see that. Comparing it to 2016, the entire map looks blue because Donald Trump won in 2016 and Joe Biden won in 2020. Well, if we compare it to previous Democratic victories, it actually looks even bluer compared to 2008 in some of these states. I mean, you're looking at an electoral map where Barack Obama was able to win 66% of the delegates in 2008. Sorry, not the delegates, the electoral votes in 2008. And yet, Joe Biden didn't go nearly as close, but still improved in some of these states. So in fact, because it'll further emphasize my point, I'm going to use 2008 as an example. So Arizona, Texas, Georgia, states that have seen incremental shifts towards the left as the years progress. These states rapidly sped up in terms of getting more Democratic because of Donald Trump. It was inevitable, largely because of the minority population influxes in Arizona, Texas, and Georgia. But it was expedited because of Donald Trump, because he turned away some of these voters in, the Atlanta metro area. These voters that were historically Republican voters that flipped towards the Democrats and have continuously voted that way since 2016. Texas is another example, a state that has had a large Republican history, stereotyped as the Republican California, now is down between single digits. It was decided by 5.6%. If you're a Republican and you're saying Texas isn't a swing state, you're lying to yourself. A state doesn't reduce by 10 points between 2012 and 2020 and is not declared a swing state when the margin was only 16 points to begin with. I mean, the margin for Donald Trump in 2020 was nowhere near the margin for Biden in California. In fact, Joe Biden won Colorado and New Mexico and Minnesota and New Hampshire more than Trump won Texas. And I think that tells you everything you need to know about why Texas is truly a swing state. Throw Virginia in that bunch as well. And Arizona, Texas, Georgia, states that have seen a reduction of support largely coinciding with Donald Trump becoming that nominee. Democrats benefit. Democrats benefit in Texas. They benefit in Georgia as well. So these three states, actually, if we compare it to 2016, a year where Trump won, looking at the margin relative to 2012, Georgia shifted left. Texas shifted left. Arizona shifted left. And these margins weren't incremental. It's not like Illinois shifting by 0.19. It's not like Kansas shifting by 1. No. Arizona shifted by 6. Georgia shifted by 3. Texas shifted by 7 towards the left from Obama to Hillary Clinton. Think about that for a moment. Think about what would have had to happen for that to occur. And much of it does go on President Trump. And it's also the fact that he just wasn't popular. He won't be popular in 2024 as the Republican nominee. He's not someone who's going to be adored of the same way Ronald Reagan is now. I mean, as much as he would like to be the next Ronald Reagan, the American public still doesn't like him. They never really approved of him during the entirety of his presidency, besides the first month. That's quite embarrassing. Compared to Joe Biden and compared to other Democratic presidents and Republican presidents, he simply underperforms them all. No president in United States history has been disapproved for as long of a time period as Donald Trump. Not a single president in United States history in the first term or only term has been in this position where they were disapproved of for the entirety of their presidency besides the first 2 weeks, not even the first month, because it ended, February 7th. So looking at Donald Trump's approval rating compared to Joe Biden, I will say in a matchup, Joe Biden's going to win largely because he's approved of more. But it's the fact that Donald Trump left office with nearly a 60% disapproval rating at a high point of a 39% approval rating on his final day. That's horrible. The disapproval rating, in fact, was the highest on his final day of his presidency than it was throughout the entirety of it. Even when he was down 20 points and the approval rating dipped lower, the disapproval rating did not go as high as 57.9%. And I know that has to sting because it's your final day, it's your lame duck session. You should be incrementally increasing, or significantly. Obama significantly increased following the 2016 election. But that was not the case for Donald Trump, and it will be a key thing as to why he won't be able to offer too much of an advantage in Georgia, Arizona, or Texas. In addition, in 2024, Donald Trump is not going to do better than the traditional Republican in North Carolina. He lost the state, not lost, but he saw a reduction of the margin in 2020 compared to 2016. You're talking about more than a 50% reduction of support compared to the 2016 election. So I don't think that North Carolina specifically is a state that Donald Trump would offer some type of benefit by being on the ballot. But there are some states, or some districts, I should say, that I do think will benefit from Donald Trump being there. I think Maine's 2nd District is a perfect example. I also think that the Rust Belt, compared to other Republicans, is also 3 states where the Democrats won't perform as well if Donald Trump is on the ballot. For whatever reason, and I find this to be very mind-boggling and baffling, that a billionaire is able to resonate with the white working class better than the majority of Democrats. Looking at the outreach that was done in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in the 2020 election on behalf of the Democrats, they funneled so much money here. Hundreds of millions of dollars across the few states. There are 5 states that I've highlighted in red or across the Rust Belt region. Iowa's not really a Rust Belt state, but that does get grouped in pretty often on John King's magic wall when he's circling it on the news. But looking at these states, Donald Trump being on the ballot has shifted them to the right. If a traditional Republican in 2016 was on the ballot, they would not have won these states. Ted Cruz would not have won Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Ted Cruz would not have won maybe Ohio and Iowa. Those were states that were won because Donald Trump was on the ballot. Not because they were wanting to vote for Republicans, but because they found Donald Trump to be more maybe legitimate. Maybe they found him to be more trustworthy. Maybe they found him to be more inspirational than Hillary Clinton. Who knows? But someone was able to flip these states for the first time with all 3 of them since Ronald Reagan's re-election in 1984, and it was Donald Trump. I think that tells you everything you need to know about his ability to do well in this region, because he did what was deemed impossible. He took down the blue wall, but is building up one now down in the South, building up the one across Arizona and New Mexico and Nevada and California to Texas, over into the southern region, southeast region. You're talking Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, up across the Northeast. Donald Trump is sort of building at his own new blue wall of sorts, while taking down the old one. So different coalitions shifting around the United States. You're seeing an increase in support across the southern region, a decrease in the Rust Belt, largely because of Donald Trump. In addition, Donald Trump is not going to offer some type of benefit by being on the ballot in Colorado, by being on the ballot in New Mexico, while he might in Nevada. Now, I also think that, if you're looking at Minnesota, I am kind of conflicted. I think that if he was on the ballot again, I don't think he would offer much for Minnesotans to actually shift towards the right. You're talking about a 7-8 point shift in Minnesota, whereas Wisconsin was 2 points, Michigan 4 points, Pennsylvania 2 points. Minnesota was not a state that narrowly shifted relative to 2016. That was a big one. New Hampshire as well, another state that had a pretty significant shift. I also think Donald Trump being on the ballot in Virginia is negative. I don't think that helps him or would help the Republican Party in their chances of winning. And also, I think Nebraska's 2nd District is also the perfect example of a state that is taken away largely because of Donald Trump on the ballot, a district that has had a very strong Republican support as recently as 2012, where Romney won it by 7 points, reduced down to a 2-point margin for Trump in 2020, and then the suburbs here in Omaha completely turned away from Donald Trump, going to Joe Biden by, get this, Mitt Romney's margin of 7 points in 2020. So Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, a district that has typically voted with the Republicans, flipped back to the Democrats in 2020 by a pretty resounding margin. I do think, though, that Donald Trump does offer some type of benefit in Maine and Maine's 1st district. If you're comparing it to 2016, still looking at the 2012 margin, Maine's 2nd district shifted 19 points, Maine's 1st 7 points, Maine at large 12 points. Comparing it to 2016 versus 2020, yes, Maine did get better for Biden, but other Republicans I don't think would perform as well as Trump in Maine. If it was Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Nikki Haley, those traditional Republicans, those establishment Republicans, don't perform as well in there as Donald Trump would, but they might in Texas, in Georgia, and Arizona, states that have seen a decrease in Republican support since Donald Trump has come into office, versus other states that haven't exactly seen that. And for North Carolina and Nevada, I know you might be surprised because they voted in opposite directions in the 2020 election, and Texas. But I also do just want to say that, it really depends. This is all relative to the national GOP as to who could actually take Donald Trump's place in this scenario, who would be that nominee of sorts that could actually perform as well, or maybe worse than Donald Trump. There's a lot of thinking that does go into this and a lot of factors that impact the outcome of the race. But just looking at President Trump's approval rating, looking at the way that he handled COVID-19 relative to Joe Biden, looking at the way that he would be viewed as a president again in 2024, he won't be offering much of an advantage in plenty of these states, but still, there is that support. There are, the majority of Republicans, majority of Trump voters believe that the election was rigged if he's still holding on to that, and if he's still able to win them, as he said he could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and lose no voters, if that truly is something that is in his mind and is a strategy for the GOP, I think a lot of it does hold true. I think Donald Trump truly could do anything and still hold on to 70, 80% of his voters. But for that 10 to 20%, we might not see him offer too much of an advantage. But I do think that his margins will decrease in some of these states. It's just that he would do better than other Republicans. So, for example, I think he would lose Florida in this scenario, but he would do better than Ted Cruz, Nikki Haley, maybe not Ron DeSantis, but of course there are always exceptions. But generally speaking, you're taking a generic Republican, you're taking an establishment Republican, someone who might be still supporting President Trump and saying, yes, I voted for Trump 2 times, but also trying to revert America and the Republican Party back to its sense of traditional conservatism. Those would be the candidates I don't think would perform as well in the Rust Belt. I think Trump would do better. Don't think would perform as well in Florida. I think Trump would do better. In Maine, I think Trump would do better. And Nevada, I think Trump would do better. But I think that this Republican, this generic Republican, would also help them in, North Carolina, help them in Georgia, Texas, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Virginia, New Hampshire, Minnesota. States that used to be swing states that won't be now because of Donald Trump being the 2024 nominee, or because of Donald Trump's long-lasting damage that a regular Republican might be able to fix, but it's up to them, and it's up to how much damage and how much Donald Trump still holds an impact on the 2024 Republican primary, and whether or not he actually is that eventual nominee. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2024 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.